media, because the announcement of Harmony came along the same time when the US restriction took place, they associated it with it being Huawei's replacement for Android. Harmony is not Huawei's replacement for Android because Harmony is way bigger than Android. Over to you.
I think I smell 5G in Harmony OS. I think when we talk about 5G, so suddenly people, the technology industry, people realize, apart from the industrial implications, I think it's more about everything connected. So 5G is that technology which is gonna eventually connect everything, all the connected devices, which is IoT. So let it be sensors or smart cities or smart societies, smart schooling, smart connectivity, sensors and whatnot. To me, it looks like Harmony OS by design has the soul of 5G, which will eventually connect anything and everything which is electronic mobility. That's one, my thoughts. So I'm going to come to my question from this, what I'm trying to explain. So tell me that in terms of the development cycle, and we are seeing a lot of apps also coming up on HMS and all. How soon, in generic terms, I'm not sure if you're allowed to say things or not, but in generic terms, how soon the consumer can expect something, either it's IoT connectivity, AI or VR product or anything related will have HMS at core? It's a quick question, then I'm going to go to the next question.
Okay, so with that question specifically, very quick answer. And I just want to reiterate, HMS and Harmony, totally different. HMS is based on the Android platform, and it is Huawei's core services integrated into Android. The benefit of HMS is already there, right? All of Huawei's phones that have been launched from the Mate 30 Pro onwards are HMS enabled. Also, older devices that run GMS can still get HMS as an OTA because HMS comes, like I mentioned, with its own unique benefits, additional functionality that traditional GMS Android phones don't offer. So we don't want our historic and our older consumers to lose out from these benefits. So their phones also are capable. HMS is already there. It is deployed already. We have over 400 million monthly active users. The applications that are coming in are growing, but what people tend to look at when they look at applications and app stores is Rizwan, independent apps, third parties. So what I mean by that is on your phone, you open up your mobile phone and you have 50 applications or 60 applications. This is not where the future is. Because if you have 50 applications or you have 60 applications, there's a problem because most of us will only use 10 to 15. And that is why you find that even on the store, on the App Store, application developers are struggling for FaceTime. There's on Android, Google's Play Store, you have around 3 million applications. How do you go and compete and how do you stay relevant even as a business? There's not, they say there's an app for everything. No, there's not. There's 1,000 apps for everything. How do you go and get the consumer FaceTime and how do you get your app to benefit and to penetrate? Over and above that, how do you as a user now filter through all of these things and see what is best for you and have to navigate and have all, this is not simple. This is not making your life better. So what HMS and Harmony is looking at is beyond just having applications embedded. We are looking at app integration. And this is already happening. So for example, if you buy one of our new phones in South Africa, and I'm going to give it in the South African context, one of our phones in South Africa, and you want to make a purchase, you want to buy something, you want to buy a computer or something else. We normally, if you're looking at an e-commerce provider, our biggest one is Takealot. All the other Android phones or iOS, you have to go and download the Takealot application, each time go and open it. Whereas on the Huawei phone, we've partnered with Takealot and we have it integrated, which means that when you slide your screen right and you say, all it says is shopping, If you want to be able to make shopping, you click on one and it takes you directly to Takealot as part of the operating system without having to download an application.
By
We are
design.
working with by design because we have partnered
Oh,
with them. And this is what we're looking at, the local development. You would also know with our artificial intelligence technology, our phone cameras are able to scan, to take a picture of food and tell you how many calories on it, right? Our phone cameras are also able to take a photograph of a menu and then translate that. So we are taking these technologies further. When I say take it further, for example, I cannot mention names of the partners we're going with, but if you take a drive to Monte Casino or anywhere else in South Africa, I'm just using Monte as an example, you take a photograph of the building. Just by taking that photo, your phone will automatically, without another app, be able to give you historic information. When was this building built? It will also be able to tell you the teatro is inside Monte Casino. This is what they do. Would you like to book a ticket? From within your photograph, all you did was take a photograph. You don't have to go now onto onto a website, onto an application and say, okay, what fun activities are here? No, it will give you recommendations that are relevant to that situation. You click on it and you can book a ticket at the same time. If you go and you search on the mobile phone, all you're going to do is a native search, pull down and say, well, Johannesburg to London. Recommendations for flights will come up automatically. The cheapest flight prices will be fed to you. You can make an instant booking without going into a third-party application or to a third-party website. Once you've made that booking, a card is then put onto your screen, and it will also provide you a recommendation for the nearest hotel, as well as a taxi, as an example. This is where you find that seamlessness, that natural interaction starting to take place. And that would have not been possible if we did not move towards the HMS platform. So that, in an answer to your question, is HMS then is not Huawei's answer to Google or to Android. We did not go and just create an alternative, because then that would have made us no better than what they already are. How can we compete? We don't want to be the same to what's already there. We want to take it up a level. And that's exactly what HMS is. But also there needs to be an understanding that HMS is only a few months old. The other systems that are out there are a decade old. So there needs to be a certain amount of admiration or respect for what we've been able to achieve in such a short space of time. Given a year or two, can you imagine what it's going to be? And this is our target, is to be able to say, how can we take this to beyond what people's expectations? How can we be able to create solutions and opportunities for our consumers using the phone to have unique functionality and benefits, but at the same time, our partners that we are utilizing to provide these technologies for them to benefit from a business perspective? Over to you.
I think the best part I love about Huawei is, what you mentioned just now. In the shortest span of time, the innovations and revolutions Huawei has achieved is that what makes it incredible, and that what makes it more scary for the competition in certain ways. But I think the world needs to understand that hard work, ingenuity, intelligence cannot be taken as a shortcut. There is a history of silent hard work of years and months, and those hours spent by these incredible tech souls, which is now giving the fruit of these very high tech solutions and products to the customers. I want to come back to, again, for our audience worldwide as well, but I'm sure we both are based out of South Africa, so I'm sure our very vibrant, huge circle of colleagues would want to listen to these things as well, because when we sit here, I think we should talk about South Africa as well. If you remember, when we met, a few years ago, first time, I told you, I moved to Africa around 2011. So almost 9 years. So at those times, it was all BlackBerry and Apple and Samsung. I want myself and the audience to know that who is Akram Mohammed and what Huawei did in last 4 to 5 years, and what you did that in 4 years from a mid-level managerial position, you have become CTO. What you have done to Chinese that they actually made you achieve. Because in a very highly competitive organization like Huawei, where standards are really, those about that you don't work till 5 o'clock, you work like till 10 o'clock. So I want to know who is Akram? What is your journey? I want to know the journey of Huawei for South Africa, because I have seen market dynamics changing rapidly in this territory, unlike other territories. We work and we connect with a lot of markets around the world, but specifically South Africa, the success stories are all over the world, in Europe as well, in Asia. But what you have done here, like you have sort of suppressed Samsung as well. So, no offense to Samsung, is a brilliant device. I tell people if, technically Huawei is one of the best supercomputing machines, but if you want something like Toyota Corolla, you can go for Samsung. So, so I want you to tell us about your journey and the Huawei's journey in this particular country.
Sure. Sure. Well, you're putting me under pressure here to tell you my journey. But I think for me, it's personally, my success is based on the fact that I'm willing to try anything. And when I spoke initially about that adaptability, and also knowing your own shortcomings and limitations. You must not be under any illusions about who you are, where you come from, and what your capabilities are. So I think.
So, 1 second. The reason I asked this question, I want my audience to know that I want to explain why I asked this question. So you do not think that, because on each of my sessions, there is a colleague or there is a friend or there is a contact which, I'm trying to highlight. Behind every question in session, there is basically information and knowledge for our aspiring professionals and youth. So the reason of this question is I want our youth and young professionals to understand that how the professional landscape in the universe works and how the real humans behind a certain title has come a long way through what kind of journeys and challenges. So, over to you.
So I'm going to use a story. So without telling you my entire journey, in a nutshell, when I joined Huawei 5 years ago, Huawei South Africa, I came from an agency environment. So I have been in the telecoms business for 16 years now. However, I joined Huawei for the last 5. But when I came in, I was not the CTO. Of course, I had various different portfolios. Prior to my current role, I was a CMO for South Africa and others. But my development within Huawei was based on my belief in one area. And I think, like you just mentioned, your intention is for the listeners to be able to perhaps pick up something. And I'll use a story to narrate, and you'll get the idea. A story I heard Simon Sinek deliver. And he said that there was this defense, I think it was, that went to this massive conference. Okay, so, sorry, it's the former Undersecretary of Defense. And he went to this massive conference. And he's on stage, is about to deliver a speech to like 1,000 people. And he has a cup of coffee, a paper cup in his hand. And he looks to this coffee and he smiles. And then he says, before I start my speech, I just got to tell you guys a story. Last year, I was here at this very same conference. And of course, last year he was the Undersecretary of Defense. He says, I was here at this very same conference. I was flown here business class. I got picked up at the airport by limousine and taken to a 5-star hotel. When I got to the hotel, my bags were taken for me, delivered to my room. I had a good night's rest. The next morning, collected again by limousine, brought here to this very same venue. And as soon as I walked in, I was treated with a ceramic cup of coffee, the most amazing coffee ever in a ceramic cup. And I took that and I enjoyed it and I came through. Today, I come here. I'm now the former Undersecretary of Defense. I flew here economy. I was placed in a 3-star hotel. I took a taxi from the airport to my hotel and a taxi to this very venue. As I walked in, I saw a young lady at the door and I asked, is there any coffee? And she pointed me to the coffee machine at the end of the hallway, which is where I've got this very paper cup of coffee in my hand. What it made me realize, that ceramic cup was never meant for me. That ceramic cup was meant for my title, the Undersecretary of Defense. What I actually deserve is this paper cup right here in my hand. And, you know, when I heard that story and how powerful that was, it really made me think. And it's the same thing that I demonstrated at Huawei, to answer your question about my journey, is it's not about the title. It's not about the role. It's about, who are you? If I'm not Akram Mohammed, CTO of Huawei, when I am entering a boardroom, if I am just Akram Mohammed without the title, will my colleagues or will my employees still hold the door open for me, or will they slam it in my face? What is my answer to that question? If my answer is they will slam it in my face or they will never hold it open for me, then I have no value and I'm nothing. So the true benefit in any organization or in personal life as well that any individual can be able to take is that, who are you as a person? What value can you offer to other people and to the organization? And are you respected as a person before your title? What type of leader are you? That is what you need to be able to focus on. And if you are a true leader, I think naturally success will follow and everything else will come through. So in a nutshell, that was my personal journey. The journey for Huawei is that Huawei is an extremely resilient company. The best, and I've worked for many, but the best organization I've ever been with in terms of their resilience and also their focus on being able to listen and adapt to local environment. I remember when I started at Huawei, at that time we were moving, just about to launch P8. And I delivered a media briefing and we announced the price. And I said to them, it's 8,000 Rand. This is what the P8 is going to retail at. And some of the media colleagues said to me, Akram, are you crazy? Who's going to pay 8,000 Rand for a Huawei phone? What are you guys smoking? Right? A few years later, just 3 years later, we launched the Mate RS Porsche design in South Africa at a 37,000 Rand price point and we sold out. 3 years later. Yeah. So this goes to show you how much the equity of Huawei grew. But the reason is because Huawei focuses on trust. Huawei focuses on developing trust within the countries that they work with and the people that we sell to and our consumers. How? I'll give you some short examples. When we launched and when we used to be 4 years ago, 20%, only 20% of our sales in South Africa was from the mid to high end. 80% was on the entry level, the low end. Today, as I speak to you, 80% of our volumes are on the high end. Only 20% is on the low end.
What?
If you look at 80% of Huawei sales in South Africa is mid to high end. I'm talking about $500 and above. Right?
That's an anomaly. So you guys are making more money on your flagships than the mid and the low end.
I'm talking about, and I'm not even talking about the margin or the profit. I'm talking about unit sales volume. 80% of our unit sales volume are on the high end. And you know, Rizwan, in South Africa, we are a operator-dominated market. 70% of high end comes from the operators. And in the operator market in South Africa, Huawei is number one, which means we sell more high-end phones in this country than Samsung or Apple. How did that happen also? When I said about trust, if you would remember, about 2 years ago, There were no Y series phones to be found in South Africa from Huawei. Before that, we had
Yeah.
loads of Y series. Suddenly, Huawei South Africa, there was no Y series. You walk into an Edgar's. That was a conscious decision we made to stop the Y series at that time as Huawei South Africa. The rest of the world, we were producing and pushing it out. But when we looked at the gap between the Y series at that point in time, compared to our mid to high end phones, it was massive. And we said, when somebody buys a Huawei, whether it is a Y series or it is a P series or it's a Mate series, the technology and features might be different, but the experience needs to be the same. And we could not offer that experience at that price point, sub 1,000 Rand. So we decided to stop it. We'd rather not sacrifice on quality and not have the phones and lose out on our sales than being able to offer a product that's going to damage and not be good enough for our consumers. 2 years later, and also now, if you compare, look at the Y series, whether it's a Y6, a Y5, a Y7, or a Y9, they are all stunning. They're coming with dual cameras when our competitors, some of them even quad cameras, when our competitors are still putting single cameras, even on some of their flagships. When you look at the software, you look at the build quality, they are all incredible. Yes, pricing increased slightly, but it's still lower than what the competition is able to offer. So we've improved on that. It's purely because we understand and we care for what we put out there. Similar to our entire culture. If you look at when the tsunami hit Japan, I'm just going to take you back to that. The tsunami hit Japan. All Western companies removed their employees from that country for fear of them losing their lives, for safety reasons. Huawei was the only foreign company left in Japan with our employees that we had working there. Why? Because when that country is in crisis, they're being destroyed. The telecommunications infrastructure is collapsing. You know how, in order to get back on your feet as a nation, how important communication is to reach out to people, to be able to save people from a service perspective. Do we abandon them when they need us most? Similarly,
No.
in Libya, when the war was taking place, same thing. Western companies removed all of their employees and their foreign employees. We stayed in Libya during the war because we wanted, that is when they needed us most. So on the same note, this being the culture of Huawei to saying, we don't mind to grind it out. We don't mind starting from the bottom. We don't mind sticking it out when things are really difficult. And we don't mind making really tough decisions. Whereas I think most other organizations, especially multinationals, I mean, Huawei is a 130 billion US dollar company. Yet we think the way we do, like this. We are caring, we are able to adapt, we are able to change quickly. Whereas you find most other organizations of that size have too much of corporate red tape. They have too much of pride in terms of what they represent, and they're not willing to adapt and localize as much. They are not willing to be able, or they're just focused on the sales number. We sacrificed ourselves for the long-term betterment of our business, but also of what we are providing to the South African market. So I think all of these things put together, and of course, our increased marketing exposure. Yes, we did invest marketing money. Yes, we did put in resources, but also the support from our operator partners, our retailers. Why do they support Huawei? Because they found, exactly like I'm saying to you, this honesty, this trust, this commitment to be able to grow their businesses as much as ours. We listened, and then we found solutions. We became a trusted partner, firstly, for the companies that we work with. And then we also became a trusted brand for our consumers that were using the devices. And that's what has helped us in a short space of time to get to where we are now in South Africa. And we are truly grateful for that. Over to you.
Wow. Wow. Thanks. I love every word which you just explained. I think it boils down to that behind every amazing product and a solution and a service and all the flashy advertisements and whatnot, I think it's the human element. It's the people and the humans behind a name. As long as they work in harmony, they work with a passion, and they own the brand. And most importantly, they work for and they connect to the very people they're trying to sell the service. You need to connect with your customer. You need to connect with them in a way that the way you connect with yourself, because that end customer and consumer is the one who is bringing your bread and butter. So as long as the way you keep yourself satisfied and happy, and if you go an extra mile and keep them happy with your product and the service and the aftercare service, and more importantly, the image you give in the society, which is like you become part of the society. What I have seen in limited years of this tech side exposure within Africa and Europe, the difference which I've noticed about Huawei is, number one, the management, the mindset is very humble. They do not have that stiffness of enterprise or corporate collar, and they are literally psychologically, physically, and electronically connected with the customers and employees. So I think that's what makes the more broader difference in terms of ecosystem. I'm sure a lot of other companies are like that, but since we are talking about tech and mobile companies, I think the rapid speed, as we talked about, the innovations and revolutions we have seen in the short period of time, which, for example, Ericsson and Motorola, which is around more than 100 years old, and what you guys have achieved, the rapid pace in the last 10 years is phenomenal. But coming back to, I think our session is really, really immersive, and I'm really excited. There's so many things I want to ask you, but I think we also don't want to, bore our audience, and let's not give them all the gold in one session. So I'm sure I would definitely have further episodes with you. So in the end, I want to talk something about which was part of the theme of the session, which is tomorrow never dies. So time is the only constant, and there will be always tomorrow. So if you take it in literal or hypothetical terms, tomorrow means like next minute is also the next minute. It's tomorrow. It's the next which is coming ahead. So my question is, I want our audience, and especially our youth, our aspiring professionals, and also our colleagues in various industries and all around. We are going through these, post-COVID times, or I don't know what's the term where you're in a particular situation. Things have changed. Humans have transformed, in a process of transforming. Work from home is a new buzzword, is the new norm. And a lot of things are happening. There's a lot of methodologies involved. People have come up with their own ideas and ways, and anyone and everyone has become expert at work from home. In my personal opinion, I see it as an opportunity which is benefiting humans as well. And in the time of benefit, there will be some shortfalls, but the benefit will be so huge that it eventually covers the shortfalls. Like in one of your answers, you were saying, because the way advancements and human grew, the fire example and all. So like when the industries or industry revolution came, so and the automation happened, it did not cut off jobs, because if you go in the history, more humans are working more and more in every industry. So whenever there is a technology, it doesn't cut off, or it doesn't finish the jobs. It just transforms those jobs into new kind of jobs. So probably an older or a typical technique job is not required, but then there are, for example, 10 new jobs to a one orthodox job that has replaced. So what I want to talk about, and then we wrap up our session on work from home. So let it be mobile technology companies, supply chain, logistics, food industry, media companies. I think the ones who are more into technology, media, communication, they have benefited a lot in terms of work from home. Um, there's more productivity in terms of the flexibility we have in terms of time. Uh, uh, any corner, any place can be our office. Uh, the cost has reduced in terms of brick and mortar offices, the bills and whatnot, and commute time. There's less traffic on the roads. So these are a lot of nature force changes which are happening. Some are embracing, some are not. There's a fear as well because they think, probably, we'll find the cure and things will go back to normal. In my personal opinion, they will never go to normal. We will eventually have to adapt and embrace the change. So I want to know because, you work for very big organizations and there are a lot of different areas and different sections and different types of work you guys do. So how will you sum up your work from home and the new change and the new normal? Or let's say the way I put it, how do we adapt, learn, and sustain the new hybrid digital life?
I think, Rizwan, the new hybrid digital life is a certainty. If anyone believes otherwise, then they're certainly under an illusion. And I'm not sitting here saying this because I can predict the future. You and I are not prophets, so we cannot predict the future. But what we can do is we can make calculated guesses based on historical data that we know for a fact has driven society forward, and relate that to current circumstances and the trends that we are seeing going on at the moment. And this is what will be able to fuel our opinions on where the future might be heading. In the most simplistic terms, over the last couple of months that we've been under lockdown, I've myself been working from home, etc., and onto Zoom calls has become the norm and a part of my day every single day. But for many people that I engaged with, and I was doing Zoom calls, online calls, whether it is Zoom or any other platform and conferencing, are absolutely new for them. It's the first time. We had to also, they had to get through this learning curve. Some individuals, we had to get onto a telephone call with them and say, okay, download here, click here, this is how you log on, this is how you sign in. But now that they've done it, they have developed a new skill. They have become accustomed to something that without this crisis, they probably would have never been used to before. Similarly, when the world moves into whatever the new normal might be, and we spoke about various technologies that's going to be shaping that future, and you correctly mentioned that jobs will be lost as a certainty. History has shown us that. But new industries will be able to develop that will create even more opportunity, even more jobs. So the problem is not the jobs. The problem is when those more jobs and those new industries come to play, there's not going to be enough people to fill those jobs because they're not skilled enough, or they did not develop themselves enough to be able to fulfill those jobs. And this is similar to what happened historically. When you saw the dawn of mobile technology come into play, many people were afraid. They were saying, well, mobile phones are bad because what's going to happen to the landline guys? Well, you know what? It absorbed those skilled guys that were able and capable to develop themselves even further and then adapt into those industries. But those that could not and were not upskilled and did not have the resources to do that, they were perhaps left behind. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, with the dawn of social media, who would have thought? Today we have digital managers, we have creative managers and social media managers. We never heard of those jobs and those industries previously. Today it's the norm, and it's a huge part of many organizations and all organizations' marketing budgets, etc., etc. So with automation and all of these things that are coming forward, going from now onwards, you're going to see a similar kind of thing trying to happen. So I think the main thing here is what's going to happen from a development perspective. How do we equip people for that new normal, and how do people from a skills perspective? And then for the last part of that question is about the remote working. I think there needs to be a balance. With everything, there has to be a balance. I'm for remote working, but I'm not for complete remote working. And the reason I say that is, as social beings, Human beings by nature, we social beings. You need that little bit of interaction, social interaction, collaboration. We require that from a creativity standpoint. So while I agree, we can be very productive at home. I mean, you're not commuting for 2 hours in Johannesburg traffic every morning. For sure, you can be more productive. Being able to spend more time with your family, etc., perhaps will make you more relaxed. But you cannot discount those conversations you have over a cigarette at the office or walking through the hall and just bumping through with somebody and just sharing an idea. You can never do that over a Zoom call because it's scheduled for 1 hour. You have the meeting, there's 10 people in it, the time's over and you're leaving and you're going. Where does collaboration and creativity take place? Bouncing ideas off people, being able to think differently. Just ask somebody, what do you think about this? So these type of things are sacrificed. I think for organizations, working remotely will also help them and make sense, allowing maybe the employees, a better idea will be 3 days work at home, 2 days in the office. This can still allow companies to reduce their cost because they don't need to be able to have such large real estate spaces, so much of resources and equipment. They can scale down, so that'll be a cost factor as well. Of course, employees will enjoy it, but I seriously think that there needs to be able to be a balance. Over to you.
Oh, okay, brilliant. I think I'll try to wrap up the session with a couple of quick questions for audience to stay excited for our next session. Quickly tell me about audio Zoom.
Huawei has set the benchmark for photography for many years. Everybody knows we have the best camera phones on the market, but how do you evolve from there? How do you continue the innovation? So we've innovated now with videography. So on the new P40 series, we have a Cine camera, which is focused on the videography aspect. And one of the features is audio zoom. So when you're taking videos on your mobile phone and you want to zoom in closer to the subject, a lot of times the video looks great, but the sound quality is not that great. Also, if you are outdoors or in a noisy environment, you are getting all of the background noise that's coming into that video. So not really good for professional shots. So audio zoom allows and it uses the multiple microphones that are on the device along with AI to pick up the sound from the subject. So wherever the camera tracks and it's zooming in on, the sound will also track and put a feedback into the microphone from there, giving you incredible quality video with the incredible quality sound at the same time. So yeah, Rizwan, you could actually be a director yourself using the P40 series. So perhaps your next Zoom call, you can use a P40 Pro to shoot it.
Well, I think I should have forced you to give me a P40 to, record a Zoom call. But let me tell my audience, this is, as you were mentioning, this is Y9 Prime. The one I'm making the call is Mate 20 Pro, and there's another Mate 10 in the other room. The only non-Huawei thing we have left, in my household is iPad. So,
shame. Sorry about that.
Well, sorry can only be rectified with one of those Mate media pads.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I'm actually sorry for you that you have to go through the pain of using that, but yeah.
Yeah, I can't even play a certain app onto my TV from iPad. So, at the same time that we're talking about operating systems, so okay, it's in simpler terms, it's more like a cult. Either you have everything top to bottom, you're dressed up, including your underwear, off Apple, otherwise it won't work. So again, when we're talking about technology being good and bad, I think technology to me is more good again than when it's for everyone and the ease and the convenience of use. Because if the tech becomes technically difficult, then it's not technology. Quickly tell me, I wanted to actually interrupt you, but then I let you speak on the audio Zoom thing. I somehow don't understand that why people don't understand that it's not just the super DSLR camera you have in a mobile phone in the form of Huawei. I think Huawei, to me, technically, let's talk textbook engineering. Uh, I think it's I call them the super mobile computing machines. You talk about system on chip, you talk about semiconductors, you talk about processors, you talk about the battery, you talk about all the circuitry, including the camera you have, the way it works in harmony like a perfect solar system is phenomenal. And I personally haven't seen a device. There are brilliant devices out there. There are so many brands who are giving super high specs on a device. But end of the day, how it effectively and to a high level performance it delivers is what matters. Uh, Tell me that you guys have super cameras on your phones, but your phones are super. I want you to focus quickly on that, and we'll end the call on that. That either it's the new Mate 30 or the P40. Tell us quickly about the engineering in that piece of brick.
Yeah, I think with all our products right now, whether it's a P series, Mate series, or even a Y series, like I mentioned before, Huawei has over a number of years focused on innovation and our quality as primary through our growth throughout the world. And this has also pushed us in terms of investment. So investment in our own resources, like our high silicon subsidiary, which is our chipset subsidiary, but a large portion and the large reason of this, and you got this kind of quality, is firstly the belief that we can always improve and we can be better. Because if you think that it ends here, you deprive of yourself of improving and becoming even better. So we always knew that we can improve and we can bring the best, and we need to be the best, and we need to constantly innovate. But when you know that you need to constantly innovate, how do you do that? That's the next part. Between 10 to 15% of our annual revenues are reinvested into R&D every single year. And we have been doing that for a long time. So this is also driving that innovation because of that R&D investment, where we are able to come up with these amazing technologies like you just mentioned and ensure that our consumers are getting the best benefit of it. So I think that when you look at Huawei holistically, we were not just a brand that came out and said, well, you know what, we need to now move from making dongles and routers to now going into mobile phones. That was not the intention. If you look at our capability, and I spoke about it before when I said 1 + 8 + n, we know our capability in mobile phones. We know our capabilities are in PCs and VR and AR and wearables. Our capabilities not in light bulbs. We're not going to do that. Our capabilities is not in vacuum cleaners. We're not going to go there. We focus on what can we do now and that we can do extremely well. And that is where we're going to put our focus, our effort now, investment. And I think over the years, this is really what has helped us grow and bring in great products. I mean, even I spoke about PC. Think about the Huawei laptops that we have right at the moment in our MateBook series. When we launched that, people thought, what were you doing? Once again, just like when we made mobile phones. But we understood that the smartphone is so close to the PC in terms of the structure of it and the technology that can go into it. But traditional PCs have become boring. They could not innovate anymore. The smartphones were superseding them, whether it is from biometrics to security, to processing capabilities, to the AI, to the collaboration from one device to another. Why can't we bridge this and bridge a traditional PC and a smartphone into one to improve that experience? And that's exactly what we did. And that's why we went out with the MateBook series. And when we launched that, when you're looking at the UAE and Saudi Arabia, the Middle East areas, within a space of 2 years, we became the #1 PC manufacturer in those countries. So that is testament to what we are capable of from a hardware perspective. Back to you.
Okay, brilliant. So, guys, we can't get enough of Akram, and certainly we need more sessions. And of course, I'm going to surprise you with some more colleagues around the world in the next session. So it's going to be more of a crossfire kind of rounds. But certainly, I want to talk more about some of the topics which we briefly touched in the session. So I want you to if we want to say goodbye to our audience with a closing remark and some message from especially a message for our youth and aspiring professionals.
Yeah, I think to everybody that's listening, it was a pleasure and an honor being on the show. I must say, as human beings, we need to encourage these kinds of conversations. We need to get together. We need to collaborate. We need to share ideas. This is the people as society, and at the same time we take learnings from each other which we can adapt to technology, we can adapt to society and to everything else. So I myself, being a guest here and maybe CTO of Huawei, I think it's also a learning curve for me too. And a lot of what I have said today is opinion based through my personal experience. When I mentioned about Huawei, it's fact. But if I have said something that's perhaps not in line with the opinion that you may hold, take what is good for you and keep it. Whatever does not work and whatever is inconsistent with what you believe, um, leave that aside, because I think debate is what is important. And when we debate and when we look at these kind of things, it is important for a collective mindset. It is for collaboration. And I think this is the reason Rizwan has this show. So yeah, until the next time, thank you for having me. Thank you for listening, and all the best. I know the world is under lockdown still. Many countries are still there. I hope you and your families are all safe during these uncertain times. And if you have any further questions or information you would like to get, perhaps reach out to Rizwan via his social media channels. Like this video, share it, and send your questions through so we'll be able to adequately prepare for the next session, hopefully. Thank you very much. And thank you, Rizwan.
Thank you so much, Akram. It was such a brilliant session, and I really appreciate your valuable time. We went beyond that time, but you have covered and explained all the questions and the topics really brilliantly. But definitely, we need more sessions on certain areas we touched, and we definitely going to tell our audience about what is coming ahead. For now, I would like to sign out from Johannesburg, South Africa. So everyone, it's lights off from the Bond space station, but it's still on and alive. It's just the lights are off. So all our tech time travelers, which are passing through or will be passing through, stay tuned and looking forward to catching up with our audience very soon. So goodbye, good night, good morning, wherever you are. Stay safe, wear your mask and gloves, and keep some distance. And don't forget the audio Zoom. So over and out from Johannesburg.